Welcome to Star Scene. Today we have with us Josh Morris from The Electorate. Hey Josh, thanks for joining us.
Hi Mary, thanks for having us.
Now, before The Electorate, there were the Templebears.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of the material on the new album started back then. Why the name change?
Different reasons why. I think we kind of got to the later stage of mixing the album and recording the album. I think it was probably mixing actually, where we just had that sensation of kind of going, even though this has been a long time coming, it kind of felt like something new. And I think there are very few opportunities in life where you can take all of the things forward that you like about a certain aspect of your life and leave behind the bits that you didn't like so much. And I think to us, given that it was a name that we had, it was associated with a band that we'd been in when we were teenagers and in our early 20s. And in fact, Eliot and I came up with the name in an art class in like year 11 or something. And it kind of felt a little bit like we were maybe hanging on to something that we maybe didn't need to hang on to. And I think that there were songs on the album that were definitely from that era, with obviously a big gap in between. But then there was a lot of new stuff. And I think we kind of felt like this is an opportunity to move forward without, baggage and association. And I don't know, there was something nice about the idea of it being a clean start, even as older people.
I think the fact that it is that time in between has let you think about the songs as well, because you've changed some of them, you've kept, but you've changed a few parts of it. Like number one, you said you changed 1%, like you had 99% the same, but that 1%, can you tell us about that? Because I love what you did with that.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. That's really lovely to hear. Look, number one was this song that was written when we were really, when we were in our early 20s. And I think that there was kind of the chorus of the song is, I'm just an old man sitting in my car, driving around with my hat on. And there's kind of it was almost like a joke mantra that, some friends and I had as, people in our early 20s joking about, people, being stuck behind a guy, Then you kind of, flash forward 25 years and kind of go, well, that happened at such a rapid rate that I wanted to mark that in some way, shape or form. And so for me, the ending of the song was originally kind of an instrumental outro, and I think it was 4 lines, and I wasn't sure if they were going to fit or how they were going to fit. And I sang the first 2 sort of down the octave, and then the last 2 up the octave, probably pushing the limits of what my voice can do. And I think it was just that encapsulation of how quickly those 2 points in our lives have kind of, merged and meshed. I think it was a bit of a reflection on the fact that I've got kids, and it's, there was a sort of an element of, being a kid in the playground and remembering those kind of moments. And then, obviously I've got, a few grey hairs in the beard and a few, kids running around the house. So there's, plenty of opportunities to mark that gap in time. But it just kind of felt like that was an appropriate thing to try and point out, I guess, the gap between then and the gap between now, and just how quickly it vanished. Do you know the movie Rushmore?
Yeah.
The Wes Anderson film. I remember seeing that at the cinema, and I don't think I'd ever heard that. I think is it the Small Faces song at the end? I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger. And I think it was the same kind of sentiment that I was trying to nail in a succinct, articulate kind of way. So yeah, glad you like it.
Another one I loved was the first single off this album, If I Knew Then. And that's exactly what you were talking about. But this one was to your wife, and you wanted to help make sure that this moment happened in a way.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing, and I guess part of that reason why you know, the whole marking of time thing is obviously really important, is to, you know, take advantage of what for me is a really infrequent occurrence, i.e., you know, putting out music with friends and putting out an album. It doesn't happen very often. So you kind of don't really want to squander those opportunities with words that could mean something to the people around you, whether they be, you know, loved ones, or whether they be further afield than that. And we'd reworked the song. It wasn't a song that we were going to record. It wasn't a song that we were going to put on the album. But in the spirit of quite a few songs on the album, we kind of just threw a lot of bits up in the air, and in a way to just sort of find out how they'd land. And If I Knew was one of those ones where we'd recorded The Bed as the last song on the record, kind of late on a Sunday night. And when it came time to do the lyrics, I kind of felt like it was, you know, like I said, an opportunity that you couldn't really pass up, to say, oh my God, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for these people around me. And show a little bit of gratitude to somebody for whom I owe so much. So, yeah.
So A Good Man, you changed the lyrics to that, and that was really powerful. Can you talk, a little bit about how that came about?
Look, it was one of those situations where, once again, there was some associations with those lyrics that in a way felt like they belonged to another time. And I think that out of respect more to the present than anything else, it was a case of going, I think we can do something different. I think I can say something different. I think that the issues that song deals with have become really, you know, really important to a lot of people. I mean, and I think especially as a guy raising kids, it's really important to put forward where personally, you know, we might have put a foot wrong, but more importantly, acknowledge how it is that we can move forward in a positive way. And I think I'd had a sexist gaffe with somebody, a woman that was the mother of one of my son's friends, and her son had been like at an Anzac Day ceremony at school, and it had been wearing some, you know, army medallions. And I stupidly said something along the lines of, "Oh, you know, were they this kid's grandfathers?" And she said, "No, they were mine." And I knew full well that this woman had been in the army for a really long time, and had been a really important part of her life. But just that moment of going, you're an idiot. Why? Like, of course they're yours. And just kind of catching myself on that. And then obviously the position of privilege that I find myself in constantly, by virtue of, you know, how I was born, where I was born, the family I was born into, a lot of the friends that I have, the opportunities that I've been given, and kind of marrying that with the awareness of, well, the increasing awareness, I guess, of the issues that the Me Too movement raised, and kind of going, there's so much more that we have to do. And that kind of collided with a post that Clementine Ford had made, in which she took very justifiable umbrage with the media representing a guy who had done some hideous things to his children and to his partner, and had one of his mates had defended him or said something like, "Oh, you know, I was really surprised. He's such a good man." And she kind of pointed out that anybody that chooses to act in such a hideous way forfeits the right to be labelled that in any way, shape, or form. And I think all of those things kind of collided over a day where I sat down and just hammered out the lyrics in a way that I hadn't really done before. I had the phrasing existing, that was existing in the song already, but it was a really great opportunity to go, okay, that's there, but this is now, and this is really important to try and encapsulate. So that's a very long answer to your very short question.
Now, Hercules as well,
Yeah.
it has so many layers, but I feel like, you know, when you sing, it shouldn't be like this. And then you know, it just rises and rises and gets to Better Watch Out.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And it's the meaning is simple, really, at that point, you know,
Yeah.
but unfortunately it's unchanged. How do you feel revisiting this song?
Frustrated, disappointed. I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, the sentiment behind the song was that it was originally conceived in the kind of early 1990s, and it was about a degree of confusion and frustration at how just a really simple, the weather's a bit off, the weather's a bit strange. Am I just at a point in my life where maybe I'm noticing it, or is it something more? And kind of being, I guess, frustrated with certain aspects of how the world operates, and looking at that and going, okay, there's this thing here and there's this thing here, and I think they're kind of linked. And so when it came time to, you know, look at the lyrics again, it was really just a point of going, well, what's working? What am I comfortable with? What can I stand by? But more importantly, what would I say now? What would I kind of, you know, I think I likened it to sharpening a dull pencil. And I think that that's a really, you know, I think that there's so many of the environmental, economic, you know, ecological issues that we're facing could have been resolved back when the song was first written. And yet here we are all this time later still dealing with, you know, those issues and worse. Due to arrogance and greed and just, you know, vested interests. It's really interesting, and, you know, not to dwell on, you know, Trumpian politics, but it plays into the song, you know, so much. The fact that, you know, people are perfectly willing to take science, or, you know, politicians and businesses perfectly capable of cherry picking what they like out of science when they want to, but, you know, then totally ignoring whatever's inconvenient to their vision of how things should be. And yeah, that frustration, I think, is carried forward in that, you know, in that song, or, you know, certainly in the way that my voice breaks. The Eliot's, you know, fantastic line of, you know, I don't know what I can do. I don't know what I can do. I don't know what I can do. It's just, yeah, there's a real sense of quiet and then not so quiet desperation. I think that kind of creeps into the song. So once again, I'm really, it's, you know, really glad to hear that's carrying through. So thanks.
Were there any songs on this album that you found particularly challenging?
Look, there was a lot of, there was nothing riding on the recording of this record other than our own expectations and what we, the three of us, wanted to achieve. So in a way that was really liberating. I think it really allowed us to go in with a sense of experimentation and a sense of, not abandonment, because we really cared about what we were doing, but we trusted each other, and we wanted to, you know, we wanted to see if there was a freshness that we could capture in allowing things to just take place. And working with Kevin, the engineers, producer that we worked with, who's just such a lovely guy and such a talented guy, he really facilitated that process. And was kind of part of that whole trust exercise. So, you know, everything kind of got where we wanted it to get to in the end. Some of them took more work than others. We hadn't played Skeleton prior to going in to record. I don't think we'd played Lost at Sea prior to going into recording. Mayday was a rebuild. If I Knew was a rebuild. You know, there was Decades in a Day was really new. And I think that energy kind of played into, played into how the record translated, and how it also just allowed us an opportunity to go, sure, let's try that. Let's see if that works. We chucked a lot of stuff in with overdubs, and then we pulled a lot of stuff out. Might not sound like that, but, you know, we did. but no, nothing was difficult. It was all fun. It was all just so much fun.
You decided to have it mastered at JJ Golden. Why was that?
Yeah. That was largely on Tim's recommendation. So Tim's done lots of really, really beautiful, fine recordings. Apart from our album, which is coming out, you know, next Friday, the Apartments album, which he also recorded and which Eliot and Nick play on, comes out next Friday. Tomorrow, there's an album out by a good friend of ours called Buddy Glass, which Tim also worked on. So, I mean, I knew Tim back from when he played in a band called La Hoover. Nick played with Tim in Knievel, or plays with him in Knievel. And so he was just one of those gents that came well recommended. We knew him, we trusted him. And so when he said, look, I've got this guy in California, I really reckon you should try him out. We just went, yeah, of course. That's, you know, the whole thing has just been a really nice trust exercise, like I said. And it was just another one of those points where I was, you know, I just went, yeah, sure. Okay. Let's give it a whirl. Yeah. And it was a nice, you know, it was a great experience, and he's done some amazing records. So always a good thing.
Oh, definitely. Sharon Jones and Dap Kings. I love her stuff.
No,
just
so sad about her.
Yeah, it was sad.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about the video for Decades in a Day.
Yeah, sure. So Nick works at Red Eye Records in Sydney, which is kind of one of the last great independent record stores that's been there for quite a few years. And as such, and because he's, you know, probably much more the social person than I am, he knows a lot of people, and Alexandro Smith is one of those people. And he and Alex were chatting, and I think it was in at Red Eye, and he mentioned that we had some upcoming releases, and would he be interested in doing something for us? And I think initially he was a little bit hesitant until Nick said, look, we don't want to do anything in the clip. We don't want to be involved in the clip. To have your thing, your time, to just go away and do what it is that you want to do. And I think at that point, Alex was like, oh, okay, that sounds far more interesting and far more challenging, or far less challenging, I think. And that philosophy has been something that we've kind of carried across our, you know, the 3 videos today. And there's another one that's surfacing tomorrow, I think. And that was the same approach. We don't, you know, we kind of like the idea, contrary as it is to current social media trends, to not be in our own clips. We kind of feel like it's a space where other people can express themselves, have a moment to, you know, do what they want to do, rather than, you know, focus on us. For Decades, it was pretty much, I think maybe Nick had spoken to him about the notions behind the song, which are, you know, kind of this dual narrative, one of a parent and one of a kid. I think Alex had a kid not long before that, so I'm guessing that maybe those sentiments played into how he approached the video. Yeah. But we all loved the way that he employed those ideas of repetition, the nostalgic, you know, kind of advertisements from the 70s that, you know, as kids who spent a lot of time watching TV, you know, when the aspect ratio of TV wasn't that, it was kind of, you know, it was that. So even just looking at the clip again and going, oh, that's right, that's what a TV used to look like. That alone was lovely, let alone then what he did with, you know, with the images. So we were blown away.
And I really think he did the song justice. It was great.
Oh, thanks. That's great. Yeah, I've expressed that to him, and he's expressed, you know, how much he enjoyed the sentiment behind the song as well, which is always nice to hear. It's, you know, it's kind of hard to know with this stuff because we've been operating in kind of isolation, you know, with these songs for a couple of years, or for longer in some instances. So the fact that they are finding a home, and the fact that people are liking them, is just, it's really lovely to hear. It's really rewarding.
Well, thank you so much for talking about the album with us. We've got 2 last questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Firstly, how would you describe the Electorate sound in food form?
Oh, wow. I'd go a poke bowl, I reckon, is probably how I'd go. There's a lot in there, but it's all kind of, and you wouldn't, you know, looking at the elements, you wouldn't necessarily know that it would all work. They're kind of sectioned off, but at the same time, they're all kind of complementary and they kind of make sense all together. So yeah, that's my
I
take on that,
like
I
it.
guess.
I like it. And then you can take what you like, listen to which
Yeah,
you
yeah, that's
want.
true. Yeah, yeah. Leave the stuff you don't like, take the stuff you do.
Yeah, or, you know, because the first one sounds like at the start of number one, it's quite melancholy. And then it
Oh
gets
yeah,
faster and faster. And at the start,
yeah.
you think, oh, why is it started with something like this?
Long and slow.
Yeah, but then you realize why, because that the ending of that song has to be my favorite. I think I love it.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
great. I had this lovely moment, I think when we were maybe listening back to mixes early in the piece where back in the day where you could hop on a plane. The plane was taking off just as the crescendo started happening, and I was like, oh man, how lucky are we? How lucky am I?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a nice little moment. So I'm really glad that it's gelling. I've spent a little bit of time going, oh my God, are people just going to go, what are you thinking? Putting this long, slow song at the start of the album. But I think, you know, as you said, like there's a lot there, and you know, glad to hear it works. Thanks.
And lastly, what is your scene?
Oh, family and friends. That's my scene. You know, people I trust, people I love, people I like, people I respect. You know, music that I love, music that I like. My dog, my kids. Sorry, my kids, my wife, my dog. The friends that I play in the band with. You know, like I really just feel incredibly lucky. For a variety of different reasons, but yeah, particularly at the moment, it's like, okay, there's so much that at the start of the year felt like you could rely upon it, and as it's, you know, as we've all found out, it's just, you know, it's a ghost in the night. You know, you just don't know. So yeah, I'm really grateful for what I have in my life. That's my scene. What's your scene?